In today's video, we're going to be talking about the spiritual meaning of jaw pain, which also kind of applies to TMJ, or people that grind their teeth at night. And we're not going to be talking about it so much from the standpoint of how to fix it or as something even to be fixed, really, but from the standpoint that there is TMJ, grinding your teeth, jaw pain is related to tension that is bound up in the system. And that tension is really just bound up energy. Tension is really bound up energy, and that energy is intelligent energy. That energy, as an emissary of life force energy, as a segment of the life force energy that animates all things to life, that energy has intelligence. And when we can tap into that intelligence and integrate it, there's wisdom there for our bodies and our lives. And so we're going to be talking about that from that standpoint. But before we get there, I'm Dr. Jay Eaker from the BioSoul Integration Center in Louisville, Colorado, and I help people embody their soul's gifts and their soul's essence so they can share those gifts on the planet. Please like this, please share it, pass it along, subscribe to my YouTube channel, do the social thing wherever you might find this on social media. I've written a few books now. One in particular, if it didn't hurt, How to Resolve Your Pain and Discover Your Life Purpose. You can get that book. You can get a free copy of that book on my website at biosoulintegration.com, and that's kind of the ultimate guide to navigating pain in your body and your life and turning that pain into a window, a portal to resource, to soul, and integrating that into your body so that, again, you can express your soul's gifts through this body onto the planet. Okay, so let's get into this. The first thing that I want to talk about on this subject is this concept of life force energy, or energy being bound up in our system. Like, how does that happen in the first place? Okay, so the second that we are born, not actually the second, but shortly thereafter, 2 to 4 weeks after conception, the part of our nervous system, the foundational layer of our nervous system starts to come online. That's the part of our nervous system that tells all the cells where to go and what to turn into. And that is a survival-based, it's concerned with our survival. It's concerned with sort of fitting in with the crowd, and so it's fitting in with the herd, so to speak, because we rely on the herd on some level for our survival, and especially as young humans, until our brains get developed enough, we can't live on our own, right? And that takes a number of years for human babies, excuse me. But anyway, so that part of our nervous system is just feeling into the energetic back office of the people around us, the people and the culture around us, and it's gathering information about how to do this human thing. And it picks up on the ways that the people and the culture around us, how they've tuned themselves. What's their relationship with love and anger and peace and joy and work and passion and all of these things that humans deal with? What's their relationship with that? And certainly they've picked up certain patterns around those things. They picked those up from their family, and they from their family, and so on and so forth. And so these things, these patterns kind of get carried through to us, and our nervous system says, okay, well, this is the way it's done here in this family, in this culture, and so in order to, maximize survival, that's what we're going to do too. So we kind of tune ourselves that way. And that there is a physical manifestation of that. We hold our posture a certain way. We use muscle tension to wall off energy in our bodies to keep those parts of ourselves sequestered, because maybe part of that is we learn, like, okay, this part of us is not safe to express, or this much of that part of us is not safe to express. This much anger, or this much love, or this much joy, or this much fear, or these things, certain range and depth and limit that get put on those things and those parts of ourselves based on what we feel in those around us. And so again, there's a physical manifestation of that. There's an emotional manifestation. We put a limit on the range and depth of emotion. We'll give ourselves permission to feel, and that ties into the stories that we're constantly telling ourselves, consciously or unconsciously. You know, in the healing world, can be a big emphasis on thoughts, how your thoughts are primary, and you know, you have to have mantras, or you have to affirmations, and certainly those things are helpful and useful. And those stories, those that we're constantly telling ourselves, there's kind of a deep bed of energy and information that informs those thoughts. That's you know, the thoughts are kind of tertiary, if not orders of magnitude farther away from the emotion that we feel in our bodies and the energy that sort of fuels that emotion. So it's these patterns that get stored in our system long before a thought is even a thing, right? When we're in the womb, thinking is not a thing. Even when we're young kids, we don't think the same way you and I think right now. And so thinking is down the road from emotion and from the sensation of that emotion and the energy in our bodies. And these patterns get stored before there's any thinking. They just get stored out of a perceived, deep, sort of instinctual, perceived need to survive. And that's where they come from. So often these patterns are, on some level, a matter of life and death. The certain part of our nervous system perceives them that way anyway. And so that's where these patterns get started, and how our body, they involve our physical body, our emotional body, our mental, the stories that we tell ourselves, and therefore they have an effect on how we show up in life. They have an effect on our behavior. We might find ourselves avoiding certain situations or certain people, or sabotaging ourselves unconsciously, because what we're doing is we're really avoiding the feeling of these deep things in our body that say, oh, if you might come into contact with a certain person or a certain situation that lights up this part of you and threatens the story, threatens that. There's a pattern there that says this is not safe to look at, this is not safe to feel, this amount of this is not safe. And so when things that we encounter in life, or people that we encounter in life, or situations that we encounter in life threaten to push those patterns and those programs past their limit, we might unconsciously avoid that person or that situation in life, and can find ourselves stuck in ruts in life as a result. So it affects our behavior and our capacity to do what it is that we came here to do, to share our gifts on the planet. So that's how those patterns get started. So they're deeply held in our bodies, and sort of dialing in on another scale, there are certain parts of our body that house certain aspects of our being. And so there are certain parts of our spine that are related to certain themes that show up on the healing journey. And there are two sort of themes, two parts of our spine that are kind of closely related to this jaw pain thing, this TMJ thing, grinding our teeth thing. And that comes from, first of all, there is when we come into this world and we feel how everyone is kind of like bracing against life, there's a way in which life is sort of continually asking us to change and to evolve. And what we pick up from the people around us is that it's not safe to allow that change to happen. There's this part of our nervous system that we pick up from those who've come before us, says we want to keep the status quo. keep things the same, resist change, because there's a way in which life is kind of always feeding us uncertainty. It's feeding us change and uncertainty. And we have this relationship with uncertainty. We adopt this relationship with uncertainty that says uncertainty is not safe. You know, we want to kind of always try to keep, create some an illusion of safety around certainty, create certainty in our lives, which one of the ways that we do that is kind of always keep things the same. And so when we feel into the others around us and how they're doing that, how they're bracing against life and trying to maintain certainty, and push away vulnerability that comes with that, we grip at the life force energy in the belly and at the brainstem here at the top of our neck. And what we're doing there is we're sort of like grabbing onto life force energy, this movement of life force energy. Again, life force energy is the sort of intelligence that animates everything to life, and it's sort of like pushing the seasons, it's pushing the change, motivating the change that happens in life, and we are embedded in that. And so we are constantly being asked to change, to grow, to evolve, to age, there's change happening all the time. And change kind of being pushed on us through life and through the movement of life force energy through our bodies. And so we grip at the life force energy in our belly and our brainstem, and what we're doing is we're trying to hold on to that life force energy and stop change, basically. Stop new things from happening, stop evolution from happening. And so there can be, again, there's like vulnerability related to that, fear can be related to that. And so that's one pattern. It's at the base of the skull here and the brainstem, and all those deep muscles that are involved in the base of our neck, they're sort of tied into our jaw, right? So there's gripping that's happening there. And then there's the bottom of our neck. So this gripping at the top of our neck, it can be related to any number of other patterns and parts of our spine. It's the job of that is there to sort of like keep those parts down, keep them from being felt. So that can be related to any number of parts of our spine, but where this jaw pain, TMJ, grinding of the teeth is concerned, I find that another important player is this, what's going on at the bottom of the neck here, the bottom of our neck, and that houses the part of our being, the part of our the aspect of our being that is tied to the part of us that knows what feels true and right for us. We have a sense of just knowing what feels true or right. It's on a deeper level there's a connection to our soul's essence there, a soul knowing. We have access to a knowing that transcends thought. Often adult humans are staying in their heads and they're trying, they have to understand everything through thought, through their thinking intelligence. But we do have access in our bodies, the intelligence of our bodies, we have access to a knowing that transcends thought. And I find that is often related to the bottom of the neck here. This part of us that knows what feels true and right. And if we're connected to that, then we can draw healthy boundaries, and we say yes when we mean yes and no when we mean no, and we can honor the parts of us that have needs at any given moment, and we can have a sense of what lights us up. Something in life sort of like lights us up, and we're like, oh, I'm going to go in that direction because that lights me up. That's my soul kind of saying like, come over here, But one of the patterns that we can pick up from the people around us and the things that can be modeled for us when we're little kids is that it's not safe to feel that. This part of me that just knows. It's also about passion. This part of me that just knows, this part of me that's passionate about a thing, this part of me that feels drawn in a certain direction when I'm lit up, it's not safe to it's not safe to feel that. We might get the, message from our parents that, if they might notice that we are being drawn to do art, and they might think that that's not of value. And so we get the subtle message that that's not okay to honor this part of me that's drawing me towards art. I have to do something more pragmatic, like I have to be a lawyer or something like that. I have to think a certain way. So that's the bottom of the neck. And so I guess, so that's what happens when the sort of pattern where our system sort of locks down those parts of our spine. We're trying to control at the top of the neck here. We're trying to control our experience. We're trying to limit the range and depth of emotion. And at the bottom of the neck here, that actually involves feeling some emotion. There's, you can't say yes. You can't say no without there really say that, or really feel that without there being some emotion involved. And some passion involved with that. And so there are kind of two reasons why those patterns start to unravel. I guess there's always a way. First of all, there's always a way in which life is kind of like nudging us to evolve through those patterns, past those patterns. It's always putting pressure on this way that we are the part of our nervous system that is binding up energy and locking these parts of ourselves down and holding energy and sequestering it. There's always a way in which life is kind of like putting pressure on that to unfold, to change, to evolve. And there are certain developmental stages in life where life will do that more intensely. You have to put together a certain amount of dots to walk and to talk, and then puberty happens, and then we explore relationships, and then we have kids, and then we're elders, and then, so there are these those are actually developmental stages, and there are parts of our body and our being that we have access to at each of those stages, and life will call us to integrate those parts of us. And that means when those new stages, those new eras dawn, that we have to come into relationship. It's okay that we push certain parts of ourselves away early on because we needed to do that to survive on some level. But later on, it kind of becomes imperative that we come into relationship with those parts. And life will necessarily sort of nudge, put pressure on that integration to happen. And when that's the case, our bodies and our lives kind of what might seem to conspire against us in some ways to bring that stuff to the surface. That's often when pain or problems or challenges of some sort, emotional challenges or crises, health crises, different kind of crises in life appear, is when life is kind of like nudging us to integrate these parts of ourselves and the energy associated with them. And so TMJ, it could show these new eras as they dawn, and life asks us to do this and integrate new parts of ourselves. That can show up in any number of, it could be back pain, it could be neck pain, it could be TMJ, it could be jaw pain, etc. Could be emotional issues, health issues. So that's one of the two situations in which life kind of might ask us to sort of unravel and integrate these survival patterns that we've created in our system. The other way that happens is, and especially if you are doing healing work of some sort, if you're doing somatic psychotherapy, if you're doing yoga, if you're doing the kind of work that I do here at the BioSoul Integration Center, if you're doing meditation, anything that sort of involves your body and increasing awareness, which I would consider spiritual work. If you're connecting with your body and you have the intention of increasing awareness, any intention of increasing awareness, that is spiritual work. And as our bodies move and unravel these patterns, we tend to think, if I'm doing meditation, if I'm doing yoga, if I'm doing body work, often it's to make pain go away, right? But if you're doing work like that, every time you transform a layer of these patterns in your system, you're gonna feel pain or discomfort on some level. So pain, discomfort is actually a natural part of the evolutionary healing, spiritual embodiment, evolutionary process that you're going to run into. So especially if you're doing healing work, it's going to move life force energy, and these patterns are going to start to unwind in your system. And so when that does happen, some of the things to look out for, especially as this at the bottom of the neck, as this sort of unravels, usually what I notice is there's some form of heat that happens or comes to the surface. And that could look like just heat in the body. It could look like inflammation that shows up in the body as that energy sort of erupts. And often the emotions that are involved with that are anger. Usually underneath that there's some grief. We hold grief in the upper lungs, and so as this pattern unravels, often there's some anger, and that is the leading edge of the energy that sort of gives us the oomph to sort of like draw new boundaries and sort of like put a flag in the ground and claim more for ourselves. And usually underneath that there's some grief. But this gripping at the top of the neck here, it says no, this amount of this anger, this amount of this passion, this amount of this level and range of this emotion is too much. It's not safe, and so it wants to put a limit on that. And so when things start to unravel, there can be kind of a fight, contention between these two parts of us that are related to the bottom of the neck and the top of the neck. And especially as this unravels in the bottom of the neck here and starts to ask the top of the neck to change as life force energy sort of like moves up and through the body. It asks the top of the neck and the gripping there and the energy that's bound there to change. And it might sort of like light up the tension that's already there, or this part of us that's trying to control, that's trying to keep that limit, it might double down on that. And when it doubles down on that, part of that is like the muscles and this part of our body is like going, trying to stop that. It's trying to put a lid. It's trying to put a lid, keep that lid on so that this doesn't move through, so we don't have to feel that stuff. And whether you're doing that during the day unconsciously, that can result in TMJ, jaw pain. But a lot happens at night. If you're someone who wakes up feeling like, oh my God, my jaw is so sore, or if you're someone who grinds your teeth and your dentist is, you're have receding gums, or your teeth are wearing down and people have to wear a guard in their mouth to keep from grinding their teeth, or have jaw pain, otherwise have jaw pain. I think a lot of times people notice that at night. They notice that they wake up in the morning, they feel that way. And that's because there's a lot of processing, there's a lot of transformation that happens in our sleep. And if life is sort of trying to unravel this complex between the bottom of the neck and the gripping at the brainstem, a lot of that happens at night when we start to relax, when the survival patterns start to relax and that energy starts to move. But even in our sleep, these survival patterns are on guard. And if they're feeling threatened, if this gripping at the base of the neck that's trying to control, put a limit on the range and depth of emotion of what we can feel, trying to avoid uncertainty, trying to avoid evolution, if it feels threatened, even in our sleep, it can tighten down and try to keep that lid on. And so we can wake up with jaw pain resulting in TMJ or grinding of the teeth. So again, TMJ, this jaw pain, looking at it from a certain perspective, we can sort of like see it as the long-term unresolved conflict between parts of ourselves, that are trying to express and part of ourselves that's trying to protect, that learned that it wasn't safe to express certain things or a certain range and depth of certain things. And so I have, through the work that I do in my office here, an important tool for, or an important perspective, or an important way to look at that is to really look at these parts of ourselves. If we want to resolve this conflict in us, we have to sort of connect with both of those parts. We have to connect with the parts of us that want to express more and have something to express, and we have to meet and connect with the parts of us that are trying to protect against that. And a lot of times people get in a fight with themselves where it's like, oh, I feel this, I'm connected to this part of me where I have to express more of my soul's gifts. And we, double down on that and then push past try to push past any part of us that would resist that or push against that or put a limit on that and see that part as bad. So we, basically like see a part of ourselves as bad. I think of things like, in my own healing journey, running a practice here, trying to succeed in life, I at times feel stuck, find myself feeling stuck. And sometimes in the healing world, in the transformation world, in the world of, success, there's this impulse to like try harder, just like push hard, take massive action, like Tony Robbins maybe would say, like, you just need to, I don't know if this is necessarily what he says, but I hear him saying like, take massive action, just like push, more effort, blow past these limitations. And for me anyway, that just doesn't work. That is a recipe for suffering for me, and I think for a lot of others. I'm wired in such a way in which I can't just blow past a part of myself. I have to include and transcend. I have to find a way to integrate those parts, to have them, to find a way for each of their needs to get met. And when that happens, in my experience, we are just kind of functioning from a wholer version of ourselves, and it's a lot more, just a lot more ease involved. It's a lot more natural. It's a lot more organic. I would say if we push past, we could do that. We can just muscle past the parts of us that are trying to protect us and they're putting limitations on ourselves. But I'm thinking, but that tension is, those parts of us won't relax. It's just like we have to then just push harder to keep that momentum, because the resistance is still there. And I can only, it's gonna affect us down. We're gonna meet that again down the road somewhere, whether that's again through jaw pain, through TMJ, through back pain, through health crises, through an emotional breakdown of some sort, through burnout, through depression or anxiety, or things like that want to stop us in our tracks, to get us to stop and listen and pay attention. These parts of ourselves, they don't go away. If they're not being met, or if they're not being heard, these parts that want to protect us, they will, turn up. They'll make themselves louder down the road somewhere. So in my experience, it's best to sort of integrate them when we can. And so we want to talk to, we want to have a conversation with, we want to meet both of these parts of ourselves, the bottom of the neck, parts that want to express, the top of the neck, parts of us that want to protect and put a limit and keep us from feeling vulnerability and trying to create the illusion of certainty, and we want to facilitate a dialogue between those parts. And a key to that is also bringing our attention to the sensations in our body that are associated with those parts, with the anger, the passion, the grief, the wanting to express that comes with the bottom of the neck, and the gripping, the sort of like trying to control, the trying to limit that happens at the brainstem here. And so TMJ, jaw pain, the sensation of that can actually be a portal to integrating these things, to unraveling these things, not a punishment or necessarily something to fix, but a doorway if we have the capacity and the awareness to sort of, and that, if we feel compelled through our journey and our awareness to sort of see it that way, and ready to see it that way, there's actually an integration that can happen there. And these parts that are trying to protect us and put a limit on us, they actually have wisdom too. When seen through the lens of the heart and when integrated, they have wisdom for the whole of us too. So I guess the affirmation there is, it's safe to be fully me, and that all of my parts are welcome. Okay, so hope that felt useful. If you're experiencing jaw pain, TMJ, grinding your teeth at night, please pass that along to people who might be interested. And check out my website at biosoulintegration.com. You can get a free copy of my book there, If It Didn't Hurt, How to Resolve Your Pain and Discover Your Life Purpose, as well as other books that I have. I have an online course, a bunch of resources there. And so I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I look forward to helping you express more life. Have a great day.